The history of a ship always begins at the builder's yard on a slipway. And as a result of that, I've decided to create this video series where I will extensively cover two examples of a very large and prominent ship being constructed, which initially their paths will be nearly identical, but as the ship takes shape, they will dramatically change. For this series, I've decided to use the Cunard liner Aquitania and the Royal Navy battleship Duke of York as the foundation for the two separate paths that this video series will take. The purpose of this introductory video is to explain why I have selected Aquitania and Duke of York to be the faces of this series, and I also want to give a brief history run of their builder, John Brown. So obviously the first reason I've selected these two ships is because they were both built at the same shipyard, John Brown, which resides on the Clyde. And these two ships were built in two different time periods, Aquitania in the years leading up to the First World War, and Duke of York in the years leading up to the Second World War. So while the construction methods for these ships were largely identical, there were slight differences due to technological advancements in the 1920s and 30s that resulted in Duke of York being constructed slightly differently from preceding British battleships. Fortunately, the method of construction between an ocean liner and a battleship at its base foundation was the same, so Aquitania is a good foundation for comparing to all types of ship during its time period and Duke of York for all types of ship during its period. The second reason I've selected these ships is because their archives remain very much intact, and that provides much information regarding the construction of these ships during each major phase. The archives being intact have the added benefit of a large amount of photographs, which are very important for making videos. And in the case of these two ships, there's approximately 800 photographs between the both of them that still survive today. The final reason I've selected these ships is because I have already covered their developmental histories in two separate videos, the development of Aquitania and the development of the King George V. With those two developmental history videos already being made, this series is effectively sprouting off the seeds that they had laid, just as would have occurred with the real ships. The story for what became the John Brown shipyard began in 1847 when J&G Thompson and Company was established. This company was formed by brothers James and George Thompson, and initially they specialized in construction of marine engines, though they eventually evolved into ship construction. A few years later, in 1854, three men by the names of John Brown, John Ellis, and William Bragg purchased the Atlas Works at Sheffield and created the John Brown and Company Limited. John Brown's company specialized in forging metals, and this would eventually evolve into armor plate, which would be sold to the Royal Navy, and before long, the company was looking into adding shipbuilding to its list of specialties. In 1871, J&G Thompson and Company had to relocate to a greenfield site at what has now become known as Clydebank. This gave them a large piece of land along the River Clyde that they could steadily expand their facilities into, and they also had the ability to launch larger ships due to the convergence with the River Cart. Due to their new excellent position on the Clyde, they became a favorite of the Cunard Company, which was ever increasing the size and speed of its ocean liners, and as the Royal Navy began to expand into private shipbuilding, they also became a favorite for capital ship construction. In 1899, John Brown and Company purchased what was now called the Clydebank Shipbuilding and Engineering Company Limited. The John Brown Company would see the rapid expansion of the shipyard to incorporate in-house construction of effectively everything needed for ship construction. This included engines, boilers, electrical fittings, and wood shops. The only thing they did not incorporate was armament manufacture for warships, which had already been heavily established at Armstrong and Vickers. The newly formed wealth and combined experience of the already existing facilities and the newly added expansion resulted in the John Brown shipyard becoming one of the most prominent yards within a few years of the purchase. To list a few prominent ships that were constructed at the John Brown shipyard, this includes the ocean liners Lusitania, Aquitania, Queen Mary, Queen Elizabeth, Caronia, Corinthia, and Queen Elizabeth II, along with the warships Indefatigable, Australia, Repulse, Barham, Hood, and Duke of York. While the future of the Clydebank shipyard in 1899 was uncertain when John Brown purchased it, it ended up becoming one of the most powerful and influential shipyards to ever see operation in history. The purpose of this video series is to show how John Brown handled the logistics, finances, and assembly of such large and prominent ships like Aquitania and Duke of York, while also giving explanations into the workforce behind the construction. However, those topics will kick off in parts 2 and 3. So, with that having been said, I have nothing more I wish to add on to this video for today. If you have learned something new, why not leave a like and a comment down below, and have a wonderful day.